Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for another edition of TIA's Connecting to Climb from the Women in Logistics Committee. Before we kick it off, we've got to get some business out of the way and read the antitrust statement. Discussion, comments, and presentations during TIA functions must not refer to any past, present, or future rates, prices, or anything related thereto. Include any reference to marketing strategies, include any discussion of boycotts of any person, product, or firm, or inhibit any members, employees from discussing employment with other member companies.
Great, and good afternoon again. Thank you for joining us today for the Women in Logistics Committee, another session of Connecting to Climb. So we want to be a community of 3PL professionals that are really encouraging the recruitment and the development of women all over in logistics. So we've started this quarterly, this Connected to Climb series with a couple goals in mind. So one is we've really gotten feedback in the past that connections are made through Women in Logistics have been really valuable. And so this is our way of connecting people in the industry with each other. And we hope this becomes a great place to meet new friends and find mentors. And the second one is we really want to profile successful women in logistics. And so we know that seeing is believing, and we want to share just some of the awesome stories out there from the industry in hopes that, other women can inspire you.
So today we're excited to spend some time getting to know Nicole Glenn. Nicole is the founder and president of Candor Expedite. And as most of you remember, if you were at conference, we did our second edition live at conference where we highlighted this year's Women in Logistics nominees. So while Nicole was not able to attend conference this year, she was our big winner. So we're really excited to get to catch up with her today and share her story with you that we missed at conference. So as always, as we chat with Nicole, please make sure you're adding your questions and feedback in the comments, and we'll make some time at the end to review all those. And I guess before we get started, I would just like to share how I met Nicole, because I think it's a really fun story. And I think that that's what this community is all about. And this is the kind of stuff we want to encourage. But it was probably about 2 years ago. We were all sort of not traveling, locked down with COVID. And I was a fan of Nicole's on LinkedIn, loved her content, loved what she had to share. And so she posted a selfie one time about flying for the first time. I said, wait a minute, I recognize that airport. That's my hometown airport, So messaged her and asked her if she had time for coffee. And I left coffee like, oh my gosh, we're two peas in a pod. She is me, I am her. And I just think, with logistics being such a specialty industry, and I saw a meme the other day about going into the holidays and looking forward to sharing what you do for the 25th time with your family. And so we all kind of run into that where people don't know exactly what we do. So the connections that can be made when people have such similar roles as you is just unbelievable. So anyway, that was the first time I met Nicole. We've become very good friends since then. And I encourage everybody to do the same. We're all back to traveling now. If you're making a customer visit or headed to a conference, get on LinkedIn. Hey, I'm here. Who else is here? Let's get together and meet face to face, because that's what really turns these connections, into friendships. So I just wanted to share that, and we'll get back to Sarah and get going on Nicole here.
All right. So first, we just want to know, start from the beginning. How did you end up in logistics? I mean, was it intentional? Was it accidental? Can you just take us through your career a little bit?
Hi. Yes, of course I can. Not intentional. So I actually worked at a retail Pep Boys. I worked at an automotive retail store. This man came in, and I have this crazy memory where if someone says something or I read something, it just doesn't go away. So I remembered his name, and he wrote on a piece of paper. He's like, hey, do you want to come work for me? I'm like, who is this weirdo? I'm an 18-year-old kid, working in retail, going to school at night. So I was like, I don't think so. But then I started getting curious, like, what is this? What is logistics? What is transportation? And so I had his address on the piece of paper, and I went to the office like a weirdo at night and was like this, like looking in the window to see if this was a real establishment. And it was. And it was really small. It was me and three other gentlemen. They were much older than me. I was 18. I think my direct boss was like 40. And then even older than that, some gentlemen in their 60s. So I became like the kid in the office, just doing a lot of the filing and basics, but it was a great place. And the reason why I really dive into this part of my story is everyone has a place to start, and you only know what you know, which is nothing, right? When you step into it, but really taking those moments of asking questions, really taking initiative, so that way you can take on more. So again, started off in filing, and then my direct owner at the time, he thought, okay, let's put this lady in brokerage. And so we had the dually headsets on. I don't know if you guys, I'm aging myself, but we did training with like a mute button. And so I would listen to him host these conversations with carriers, and then I started to love it. And I started making relationships with carriers. So I had a lot of the same drivers calling me. I knew their dogs' names that were in their trucks. And it just got to be to a point where I was like, I love this fast pace side of things. So I stayed with it. I ended up leaving that company, and I went to another position that was working with owner operators. So they had a whole fleet of owner operators. And so now I'm like, I think I was 21. Yeah. 21, and it was all men that were our drivers at the time. And so, I mean, I'd have these big, huge guys marching in the office telling me what a crappy backhaul I got them. And, it was intimidating, but at the same time, I think it also gave me a little bit of extra skin working with these folks and trying to develop a relationship with someone who had that hard shell exterior. Because I found out, like I'm sure you guys have in logistics, a lot of those people are just like, mushy gushy at their core. Right. So that taught me how to work directly with drivers, dealing with getting customers. Now that was always, a hard thing for me at that age, to like walk into a facility and try to sell them our services. So it really got me into that spot to keep climbing in my career. So then after taking a mini break from logistics, I had a daughter. So it was about 3 years, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to go back. And then, like it always happens, once you get used to that, somebody who knows somebody. And I got offered a position to work at a company called K&L, and I was there for about 9 years, I think 9. So it really was everything from sales to national sales to management to leadership to executive in that company. And it just taught me so much on great things. Like we built a fleet. We had a customer that was asking for a actual fleet. We actually went out, obtained drivers, did slip seating in different areas. And that was all new stuff to me. But beyond the sales side of things, I really fell in love with managing people and learning how to take what I've learned and really help other people put that into their everyday work ethic, or different ways that they can grow their career. So I went, okay, I'm good with the sales side of things, but now it's the people factor that mattered. And so when I left there, I decided to start my own company after a little mini stint of working somewhere else that I didn't like. So in 2017, I founded Candor with the emphasis of expedited work. So our whole mission is to really help clients with their time critical shipments. And why I love that space is I feel like we're really helping somebody. You're coming to us when you need something the most. I know a lot of people go, that's great margins. No, I like the chaos and helping people get to go home at night. We get those phone calls at like 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night on a Tuesday or a Saturday. And it's going, we got this. Let's get you back to life, and we'll handle this. And so our company has gone through some pretty good growth phases over the past 5 years. And we'll talk about some of the things I've learned from, running someone else's company to stepping in and running my own, but a ton of lessons I have learned in this fact of life, but working with Liz, like when she said the whole 2 peas in the pod thing, it is funny when you start networking with people and hear their stories and you go, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I went through when I entered into this phase. And so having those people that you can talk to, but then also lean on is fantastic about this industry.
It absolutely is. It's such an important part of that. You're not in it alone, right? And let me bounce this off of you. There's a ton of value in that for sure. So as a founder and CEO, I know you wear a ton of hats. Talk to us a little bit about what's your favorite? What do you personally love? What are some things that you're like, man, I really wish I didn't have to do that, but I know it's part of my role?
Sure. Well, I was working in my business until the pandemic ultimately started. You think it would be opposite, right? Where it's like, now you need to get back into your business. But I knew at that point in time, it was like time to expand what I was doing and really try to move that direction of the company. And so as much as I have to, and I thrive in this area of working on the business, I do love working in the business. And I think it's part of one of those, push and pulls that we have as owners when you did work in operations and did work in sales for a long time. So I miss that part. I got to go to the DATCon conference and talk about actual freight besides of just a business. And I came out of that conference like giddy, understanding, where is the market headed and the actual movements and what's needed in the industry. And so I don't get to do that enough now. I'm more working on the business, trying to expand the business. I do love marketing, though. It is something that caught my attention at that little mini stint of a company I was at. And I really dove into that, trying to understand how can you tell your story to people with images and blogs and, putting yourself out there. So I do love that. I love meeting people too. That's always the best part when I get to go meet a customer for a first time or see a new employee or go to a conference and get to meet all these individuals I've probably talked to 100 times via, LinkedIn Messenger. But what I don't like to do, I'm not a detail person. So anything that requires me to get to planning an event, where we have to have all of our people fly in and who's flying in at what time and what's going on here. Not a fan of anything detail oriented. Building a customer in our system, you think that would make me happy too? No, you have to read through all the fine stuff, put it in the system. So anything that's, I guess you could say like a basic function to actually make your business move, it makes my skin crawl. I go, can someone else please do? I'll pay you. I'll pay you out of pocket. Please do this. I just don't like it at all.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Yeah.
I can relate to a lot of that for sure. I want to be talking about ideas and moving forward and hate getting sucked into small details, I guess. So we've talked about this before, but share with our listeners here. So we know, you can't win without losing. And, you're winning out here. So I'm sure there have been some setbacks and challenges. Can you share with our listeners, some about the biggest failure or challenge in your career and how you were able to overcome that?
Sure. I mean, I've had many things go wrong. I mean, I think we all do, right? That's part of any career, any position that you're in. But it's all about having that resilience on how you bounce back and how you're going to move forward from that. So, I mean, we've had significant things of customer losses. I've had a partnership that did not work out. I mean, I can keep going, Liz. I think that's the whole thing, is having that realization of that. But what's your part in that? What are some of the things that I had done to potentially lead to some of these failures or mishaps or problems? And then identify what is it that I could do again moving forward in the future. But I would say some of the biggest things are not even falling on your face, because I think that's what everyone's looking to hear the answer. Like, tell me about a time you fell on your face. I think it's a lot of the opportunities that I missed are really my biggest fears or my biggest failures because of fear. So I would let fear kind of drive that. Like, maybe we're not ready to do this yet. I don't know enough about how to build a technology infrastructure for my company. So we'll get there someday. So I think it's really the opportunities that I've missed instead of trying to just face those and figure out a solution on how to move forward or be vulnerable enough to say, you know what, I don't really know that. I really don't know how to do something like that, but I bet you we can find somebody. So, I mean, I've missed out on people not wanting to work here because of it, you know, like didn't sell the opportunity big enough because I didn't have the confidence at different times of the stages of the company that maybe it was worthy of somebody of a certain stature to come to. So I'm going to stick with that answer of just missed out opportunities from the fear of failure and confidence.
Well, that's a really good one. And now I'm going to have to rethink how I would answer that question, because it might be different now. I mean, it's and the opportunities you miss out on are kind of harder to measure, right? How would it have gone? What would it have looked like? And you don't really know if you don't seize them. That's interesting. I may have new failures rattling around later. I'll forgive you for that. So, tell us about, somebody in the industry, maybe you've worked for them, maybe not, but that inspired you in your career. And what would you say you've learned from them?
Well, my past owner that I worked for, his name's Russ Gallimore. I worked for him. I keep saying, I think it's 9 years. I'm not exactly sure, 8 or 9, but just learned a lot on the value of an employee, right? And making that relationship go beyond employee and really continuing to give to your employees for constant learning opportunities so that way they could grow within themselves and take on those next levels in their career, for sure. I mean, I remember at one point I was just a sales rep and he was like pushing me to become the EVP. I shouldn't even say that, VP of the company. And I was like, oh my God, I really don't think I want to do that. I was having a lot of fun being in sales. And as we're all taught in sales, like that's a greedy land. You're obviously working for a company, but the whole method in transportation, and we see it in so many companies, is go out there and get as much business as you can. So you're your own single unit almost on the street, bringing in opportunities for operations. So you're counting on yourself a lot. And so I wasn't ready for that transition into that true like leadership spot. But that big push, I mean, it's changed my life. It changed me to fall in love with the concept of looking at others and where they want to go and seeing how I can help them achieve that. Whether it's even at our company, we're actually rolling out a new program today called Thrive, which is one of our core values, for people to join this year-long commitment of continued education. So that way they can continually take steps through their lives, even beyond Candor, right? So that was a big push for me. But then really the ladies of LLC have really, I mean, you're in that, Liz. Because even when I met you, it was like, you say that's what, 2 years ago. That feels like a lifetime ago to me, from all the learning lessons that I've gotten from you and Christy and Charlie and Sharon and Natalie. Like that changed my perspective on having a network and people that you can talk to, because forever I felt like I couldn't say where I was in my spot, because then it would show all my cards that I wasn't really moving the needle forward the way I wanted to. So by having these relationships with all of you, and then even the guests we brought on, it like showed me that no one has it figured out. We don't. I mean, none of us do. I don't care what CEO, I don't care if it's the biggest freight company in the world and you see them smiling every day on camera. There's so much stuff that is going on behind the scenes in a company that an owner or executive is pushing through, that I get that reassurance that, okay, I can figure this out. I do have people in my corner. I do have people that have gone through this. And here are some of the different viewpoints that these folks have. And I can kind of craft my own journey based off of the insights that I've gotten. So it's so many people now. And that whole idea of a network, and I hope everyone listening here is really focused on that, is really focused on growing their network and giving back to the people that you network with. So scheduling those calls, like Liz said, and going to see people in person and being vulnerable and telling them where you are and where you want to go. And you'll be surprised at how much feedback you really get from people. And like even Liz said with the last question, you're thinking about that stuff when you're done, and maybe you apply that to your life. Maybe not that day, maybe it's a year, 5 years down the line. You just never know when that lesson comes into play.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And you're constantly learning. It sounds like you're constantly pushing yourself to learn from others and to learn more and continuously improve, which I think, attributes a lot to the success that you've had. It's like you never stop learning. It is totally a journey for sure. So hindsight's always 20/20 in that too, right? You learn a lot along the way. You've talked a little bit about that. So what advice would you have given your younger self? If you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing, what would it be?
It would be, I hate one thing, Sarah. That's hard. This is like huge. Well, it would definitely be to build out my network. The people nowadays, even with the tools such as LinkedIn, we didn't really have that in the year 2000. I think I joined that in 2008, and it was kind of a thing I hopped on occasion. But it's really building that network beyond just a social media platform, right? Not just going on and liking people's posts, but actually establishing relationships, going to conferences, and not being afraid to do so. I mean, just kind of showing up. I think that's half the battle, is showing up and really pushing yourself through those fears to do that. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I did my first keynote, and it was like one of those things that completely terrified me to do. I'm talking in front of a group of professionals for an hour long, and they're listening to me, and I'm like, how am I going to pull this off without being so nervous? But again, it's through that network and having all of those continual phone calls and Zoom meetings and sessions and panels that push you through that, because you just keep building extra layers of skin that lead to confidence, right? And so I think for me, it all started with expanding my network to hear other people's stories.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because there's always a lot to learn from others for sure, and mining that wisdom that they've gone through those troughs and gone over those mountains too, that, you don't always have to do it by yourself. There's other people that can go before you and help you see the potholes in
Sure.
life.
And asking too. I mean, I think that's a big thing. I know you said just one, and here I am trying to give another one, but asking outrageously is one of those things that I've been trying to practice. So it's asking for what I'd like to see happen to make that move forward. There'd be probably big jumps in my career if I would have done that sooner. I think it's a trait for females, and I know it's not for all, but we tend to want to check off every single box before we put ourselves out there. We're like, okay, this job application is asking for 17 characteristics. I have 12, so maybe I'm not ready. I need to have at least, 16. So it's really just going ahead and trying to have that, ask for that opportunity of what you're trying to do, whether that's a position or a mentor or a sponsor. So that would be a big one too, just saying what you want and seeing how people can even just give you guidance to go after it.
Yeah, absolutely. You build a lot of confidence that way too. And knowing that, again, that other people have walked that road a lot and are usually more than willing to share those stories. They really truly want, people to know. So in your observations, I mean, you talked a little bit about the first few places that you worked. There was a lot of men in the industry. Do you feel like the industry as a whole is successful in recruiting and retaining women? And how have you seen that evolve in your tenure in the industry?
Oh my gosh, 20 years ago, it was like night and day different. And then even, let's see, 2010, 2011, I started going to conferences and there would be 200 men in the room and maybe 4 or 5 women. So it has really evolved. And I know that we're on this mission and we need to continue to be on this mission to keep bringing more and more women in this industry. But to watch where it was to where it is, like, I just applaud it, that we're on this mission all together and seeing this balance. I think, what was it? Flexport had just put out that 33% or 31% of the workforce of logistics is now female. And so it does get smaller as you start climbing. So that executive levels around 14%, if I remember correctly from the article. But it's telling women that there's opportunity here, and telling our stories and seeing other people in the space. It doesn't have to necessarily be, owners or management, but even people that have entered into the space, have been in the space for a year, females, they need to get out there too and start telling their story, because that's going to be the way that we start driving that more. And what's cool is programs now for colleges are focused around supply chain, so I was able to go up to my college that I graduated from in Midland, Michigan. It's called Northwood University. And I was just enthralled by the women that they had there as students hosting this Distinguished Women's event. And they're all in these supply chain directional career paths, And so they're going, tell me what it is like in logistics and how this all works. And I'm trying to get an internship here. And so to see that enthusiasm, that it's not just trucking anymore, like it's an actual career path. And I think if we keep telling that story, and maybe even younger people start seeing the success, or even our kids, saying my mom's in logistics, we'll start seeing more of an uptick from all the different genders and generations coming into our space, but for women in trucking, to actually get in to trucking we need you too. So we're looking at different things as a community to try to get more women to get behind the wheel and make it more accessible for them to get home and have more flexibility. And so I know Women in Trucking Association is really working on that, but you see a lot of trucking companies out there putting that emphasis behind safely and confidently putting women behind the wheel. And I think it's awesome.
Absolutely. It's definitely changed a lot in 20 years for sure. So what do you think has attributed to that? I mean, you talk about telling your stories. You talked a little bit about how you went to your past university. What are some other things that we could do, you think, to attract the talent?
Ooh, that's a great question. Oh, I don't really know, Sarah. I think it's really continuing to just push and have the younger people start inviting people into this industry. I mean, I've heard that quite often where everyone gets their degrees, and I wonder how many people have their degrees in psychology that are flinging freight. And then their friends see that and then they join into it. So I think it's really a lot of word of mouth, tell people loud and proud what you do, and then keep explaining to different women that there are opportunities for them to keep growing in this space. And people like myself and all of the women on this, trying to explain as leadership and ownership, it's possible for you to take these steps. You can. It is whatever you want to make it. And so I think it's just continuing down that path. But I also think it's going to take companies to really have an emphasis on their diversity, and how they are continually educating all of their people to take these next steps into leadership and management. And I think as we continually go down the path of wanting to be a great place where people will want to work, we're going to see more programs like that. And if we don't, you're going to see people leaving companies to go to companies like that. And so I hope that that's part of the spread.
So just a quick reminder for everybody, if you have your own questions for Nicole, please make sure to throw them in the chat. We're going to get to those soon here. So Nicole, you mentioned LLC, and this is a TIA podcast, so I'm not sure what people know or don't know. So I love it. I'm very grateful that you founded the group and for all the ladies' hard work that have gone into it. But can you tell our listeners about LLC and kind of what called you to bring this group together and a little bit about our mission over there?
Sure. So during the pandemic, kind of like everybody in their lockdown phase, I was really craving connection, you know, with different people. And so I was starting to hop on more of the social profile or platforms and like talking to people. And so I had gone on a couple of panels. And I started seeing a lot of pop-ups of men, right? A lot of men podcasts, a lot of men shows. I was part of one for a little while, and I went, I think we could do this a little different. You know, I think we could really bring the business side of things to women and open up and be vulnerable as owners and as leaders in the industry of real stories, you know? And so I did some interviews. I think I put out a post, you know, asking for people that would want to be a part of this. And it was like overwhelming how many people applied. I think I had 50 interviews. I don't even know if you knew that, Liz.
No.
Yeah. So I was like meeting women. I was having these 30-minute blocks, and I actually felt terrible leaving some behind because there's so many great candidates that wanted to be a part of it. So I established a group of, we had 6 women, myself included in that were in logistics or touch logistics in a way that we could really focus in and try to tell our stories and try to have helpful sessions to educate listeners to maybe learn more, be inspired by different stories, and hopefully help them take those next steps in their career. So we all came together with the name of it. So LLC stands for Ladies Leadership Coalition. And what it is, again, it started off as just more of a panel platform where it was all 6 of us getting on and having different topic sessions. So it was on like networking and finance. And I mean, I can't even remember how many we had done at all different topics. And so we've evolved it too, to bring on some additional people as outside guests to start educating beyond just the business owners that were on it. And we've gotten quite a few followers to it that have really been able to hone in on different sessions that have made an impact on some people's lives. And it's nice to hear. I don't know how often you hear, Liz, but I'll get a message just saying, oh my gosh, I love this session with Sharon. And, you know, I'm blah, blah, blah. And it's really, really cool to hear that people are getting something out of this. And so we're hosting a lot of interviews right now. So if you, listener, is interested in reaching out to see if maybe you can contribute to LLC, you do not have to be an owner. You do not have to be, you know, some crazy leadership level person. It's really telling the story of all of us on where we're headed and how to be successful in our career. So feel free to reach out to myself or even Liz or anyone that's on it to see if we can tell you some more about how to actually host and be a part of our show for a segment. But again, that whole emphasis is to let women know that what I said before, with pulling back the curtain and showing what goes on and how to overcome those things, is it's a real thing. And not all things are sunshine and rainbows. And so we have to work through those things to consistently improve ourselves and move ourselves forward. So some of these stories can really help you see that and potentially identify and also network with some of these amazing people that are coming on our show.
Very good. Thank you. So we're going to get into some questions from the group, but first, you know, we're already moving towards the end of the year. I saw my first Christmas tree up somewhere at an office building yesterday. I said, wait a minute, we haven't even trick-or-treated yet. but we're almost there. So as you think about 2023, can you share some of your top goals for Candor as well as for your, yourself personally?
Yeah, sure. So like we keep saying, this continual learning spot for me, my top goals have been to really focus to grow our company strategically. And so it's finding some additional people that can really help us on that mission to map this out, as well as myself more personally having some more time. I think we were just talking about before we actually went live, getting some vacations in there and having some balance. And so one of those main objectives for me is to be more balanced in life, because I feel like a chicken with her head cut off and sometimes her tail, and she's chasing bullets. She doesn't know which direction to go. So really, really having that balance in life to spend time with my family and my health, getting back into a gym again and trying to actually work on me instead of so much of just the business, but lifting some, and Candor too, lifting some of the lines of business that we've added. So we are known as just an expedited ground company that most people think now, but we've also built out our first and final mile program, as well as air freight, and starting to build out our truckload program even further. So we have some pretty hefty goals there of what we're trying to accomplish. So again, that's just working through that and being as strategic as you can to tackle those.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know the work-life balance, and for a lot of us women, those are the things we tend to put off, right? The goals that tend to move to the back burner through the year. So I'll just volunteer to be your accountability partner and check in on you there next year on some of that stuff. And I'm going to need you to do the same for me, because I'm going to work on some of that stuff. I want to learn how to meditate. I want to learn how they say, turn your brain off. What the heck is that?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I could benefit from a lot of that as well.
Putting our phones down and just breathing for a second, it's required. Yes.
I'm actually going to a wellness spa in Arizona here in a couple of weeks. And I'm going on my first solo vacation, which I'm pretty excited about. Oh, my room doesn't see me in here anymore. Sorry, guys. But anyway, I was on last night setting up my schedule and kind of looking at all the activities. They do activities from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's like an all-inclusive place. And I saw it's a cell phone free zone. So you can not use your cell phone anywhere on the property except like in your private room. That's interesting, huh?
That's going to be amazing. The first couple of days, how long are you going to be there for?
3 days.
Okay, so your first day is going to be really hard. Maybe even your second, but then you'll get into the groove. It just takes a minute to like actually physically detach yourself from it. It's so weird how we are tied to that now.
Yes, lots of work to do there. So I'm looking forward to it. Jessica, you've been kind of monitoring questions and that in the chat. Have we got any in for Nicole?
Yes, ma'am, we do. The first question was, how and where do you begin telling your story if you're still early or within the first 10 years of your logistics career?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, I think it's just owning those milestones. When you look back, you're going to see some of those things that mattered and some that don't, right? So it's going back to the beginning and understanding what can you take out of that was the most impactful for you, and maybe some of those biggest life lessons that you've had in those different stages of your life and working career that you apply forward.
And I would just tag on to that. I mean, I've got a 20-year-old son who is graduating college early. So he's kind of trying to start to think about next steps and where does he want to work? What does he want to do? And all of that. And he really wants to start working on his professional network in that, but he's in a position where he doesn't feel like he has a ton to offer to the people that he looks up to in that. But I just keep reminding him, don't forget those people want to help. Like Sarah said earlier, they are always more than willing to share their knowledge and their experience. So when all else fails, ask questions. You know, and it gives you an opportunity to tell your story through that, you know, even as you become more confident in your own journey.
Yeah, and don't feel bad. I think a lot of people feel like they're boasting about themselves, and it's an uncomfortable spot in the beginning. So don't feel bad about that. Like, you are who you are. You're going to have experiences or you're not. And it's okay to say, hey, this is where I am. And this is where I want to go too with that, and your networking and how you're talking to people, like Liz had just said. It's all right to show that you're eager. I think you'd be surprised at how many people love to help eager people too.
Okay, great. But one that kind of ties right in with that as well, kind of hand in hand, excuse me. How would you all recommend finding a mentor that holds an upper level leadership position to guide you through career decisions, development, specifically a fellow woman?
Well,
I was going to say, Liz, you can start with that. Go for it.
So, you know, this committee here in TIA is kicking around, brainstorming some things for that. You know, we want to start a session that is sort of runs in a different rotation. So this is quarterly, but that would fall sort of in between these quarterly sessions that would allow for some more maybe one-on-one, maybe very small group mentor-mentee relationships to happen. And so we're kicking around different ideas. And if anybody has anything that they know they would like to see, please send it to Sarah or myself. But one of the things we're kicking around is, you know, like I said, one-on-one or very small groups where we get on a Zoom and we break out, and people maybe ahead of time can be surveyed on what they're looking for, so we can try to match people up appropriately, because we know there's people out here that want to share their experience, share their advice, and help bring other women in the industry up and along. So it's really just, and again, we take feedback on this, but what's the best platform for that? You know, what's the cadence on that? But we are looking to get something like that going amongst the TIA group soon.
Great, thanks, Liz. Nicole, this one's for you. What does Candor do to push diversity within the organization?
Well, we look at it as people. So it's not something that we go, we need X amount of women, we need X amount of men, we need X amount of this or that. It's really having that open mind on every person and their capabilities, and offering different programs too that people, like I said, we talked about that Thrive group today, that's open to everybody. But it's also, you know, taking some of the women that we do have and bringing them along on certain things like conferences, where I've brought women to WeBank conference so that way they can go out and meet other individuals, you know, that's mostly women at these facility or these conferences, so they can open up to that. But I think it's really just establishing that women need to find their voice. So I would hope that even the women that are in my company, if they're even watching and listening to this, it's giving them the insight that we are open. You know, I've put coaches under individuals too, to help them work through where they are and where they want to go at their goal set. But I think for me, it's really just having the emphasis on being just authentic in who we're hiring, male or female, and then lifting all people forward. So we almost put our blinders on. So I know that sounds like reverse, but putting your blinders on, going, I don't care either which way. We want everyone to keep stepping forward in our company, so that way everyone's successful. But it's the best advice I can give in a company of just 32 people. So obviously, as you get bigger and you're in larger companies, you should be looking and housing more advocate programs for all people.
Great, thanks, Nicole. Now, these two, we have two more questions and they kind of run together, so I'm going to give them to you all together. Does LLC offer sessions like today? And then how do we get involved in the LLC committee and the TIA Women in Logistics committee? And is there an application process?
So I can talk about TIA, and then Nicole, I'll let you talk about LLC. No application process for TIA Women in Logistics Committee. If you are not already receiving notifications on things, email Sarah or I, and we will make sure that you do, or Jessica, or you can find us on LinkedIn. Any way you can track us down, we'll get you on the list. And so currently, this is sort of what Women in Logistics is doing. Like I said, we are looking at what exactly will a mentor-mentee platform look like, and we hope to roll that out to everybody very soon. But another avenue we have is the TIA Connect, and there is a Women in Logistics committee on there. So anybody who wants to communicate with that entire group, that is probably the best place to leave posts. And it's not super active right now, but we can all come together and make that more active for everybody. And Nicole, I'll let you kind of talk about LLC.
Sure. So LLC is mostly this. This is really what it is bringing different women and panels together, talking about different topics. So you can even watch past shows that we have. We actually have it on YouTube. So you can look up Ladies Leadership Coalition. I know we keep saying LLC. That's kind of our short nickname for it. But it is Ladies Leadership Coalition. You can see it on YouTube if you actually want to watch the sessions like today, or you can go on Spotify or Apple or really any podcast platform and listen to past ones. But we have constant new ones rolling out. And as far as being involved, send myself a message. You can actually find me on LinkedIn and tell me what it is that you're exactly looking for. If you want to just understand how we can help you, or you want to bring a great topic to the platform that we can host a show on, that would be great. I know all the women that are on it are also able and willing to answer and help anybody with questions. I know I get them all the time. People that have different questions throughout their entire career, that someone wanted to start a company and has come to me. I am more than happy to help anybody and give back anything that I can of insight for you. But yeah, hop on either LinkedIn. It's also on Facebook. And then I think we're on Twitter, but you can find it most on LinkedIn, and it gives you all the shows and insights there.
Well, Nicole, before we close it out, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners?
No, I'm just grateful that I've been able to be on this. This is fantastic. And thank you guys for having me. And, I wish everyone luck going into 2023 that's on the session today.
Well, this was a great discussion. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations again on being 2022's Woman in Logistics Award winner. We can all learn so much for your journey. I appreciate you sharing, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. So this was great. I'm looking forward to this group growing over time and bringing you more awesome profiles like Nicole's today. So don't forget, it's all about connecting. Find people out here to connect with. Invite them for coffee. Let's stay in touch until we can meet here again. That TIA Connect using your TIA login is a great place for that. And we will host our next Connecting to Climb in January. So we hope you will join us again here for that. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you
so much, Nicole, for everything. It was just such great advice. We really appreciate you being on with us today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jessica, too.
Thank you.